So I want to take a minute, share some thoughts in reference to the narrative of a gold revaluation and how, for some reason, based upon the fact that a lot of alternative media people believe that this is going to be something beneficial for our country and for a variety of reasons. And so I want to share my 2 cents on it and basically just reiterate how I believe that at this current moment, the idea of expecting some type of revaluation that will be beneficial for our country, it goes in the opposite direction of where the powers that be and those that are overseeing this reset would want us to go. And that's why I believe that there's more to this revaluation than what we're being told, of course, but more importantly, than what you're hearing from other content creators out here in the social media sphere. And just even typing in the words gold revaluation and you get a nice assortment of individuals sharing their 2 cents on the subject matter. And so there are definitely some good click worthy type of videos because everybody shares their 2 cents as to where the price of gold could go, or more than likely will go. But it will not go to those types of numbers because of the US deciding to bring back a gold standard of any kind. My goal with this video here is basically to share my 2 cents and to give an opposing viewpoint on where things are heading. And because I just am somewhat too much of a skeptic to believe that this current administration all of a sudden is going to try to reestablish our monetary system with something true, tried, and tested in the form of gold, it's no doubt, in my opinion, that there's something more sinister behind the scenes as to what's going on. So, for the most part, this narrative is fueled by the idea that there is a Federal Reserve press statement from August 1st that even just slightly mentions what other nations is doing or have done in reference to the official reserve revaluations. And so, just from this long, somewhat synopsis of what has taken place thus far, people are literally using this to say that the United States government, and in particular, the Federal Reserve, is considering the idea of revaluing gold. And so, just to spare you the long read here, I'll just give you a short synopsis of what this article is about when you just summarize it. And to try to highlight more of my emphasis here, I'll just basically say that I believe there's two approaches that's being considered with just mentioning gold revaluation. One of them happens to be surrounded to try to disrupt the current momentum within the gold market that is being led by the Eastern Hemisphere, i.e., China, and the continuous accumulation of gold that they've been doing for 20 years now. And the fact that I believe is not proven that they are sitting on the largest gold stash probably known to man for a reason that would disrupt the Eastern's or the Western's agenda to go solely digital. And so just a mere mention now of revaluing gold could be a way to keep the control of the spot price within the hands of the Western Hemisphere, i.e., allowing just the statutory dollar amount from 42 to, as this little excerpt mentions, hints at the possibility of 3,300 or so, or whatever it is they choose to revalue it at, to control the price so that the Eastern Hemisphere don't disrupt the current flow of this digital transition by shocking the markets outright and basically shifting all the power to the Eastern Hemisphere by giving us a price of 10, 20, 30, 40,000, basically exposing the fact that the United States of America, in my opinion, has no gold. There's no gold in Fort Knox substantial enough to really rebalance our books or to account for every single dollar that's being created. And so what better way to disrupt what's happening between the BRICS and China and everything else when it comes to tangible gold other than to try to control the narrative, i.e. the price, incrementally, slowly, them leading the narrative in reference to where gold can go rather than the world being shocked by what China or the BRICS perhaps may do. That's one theory. And then the second theory is we know that everything is heading towards Bitcoin. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. Our Congress is all for Bitcoin and they're positioning gold or Bitcoin as digital gold. We're going digital. We have to. There's just no way around that because that's the way the system's being set up. And I would be hard pressed to believe that this administration, all of a sudden, knowing that Donald Trump is a gold bug, but it's not Donald Trump who's calling the shots. He is a 79-year-old man who has a position of authority that is the forefront and the primary spokesman for our country and the world for the most part. But then again, if you look at all the advisors around him, they're all private sector, quote unquote billionaires that would definitely not benefit solely if things were to go back to true sound monetary practices where the government then had to be more restrictive with their borrowing measures, and the Federal Reserve had to literally continue or reinstate monetary policy centered around checks and balances, with gold being at the forefront. So there will be no revaluing to help the Federal Reserve rebalance their budgets and stuff like that, or the federal government to borrow within the means of how much gold we can allocate and the price of it per da 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 da. No, that is all hogwash. So all this idea of revaluing for the benefit of our country, I'm not buying it. And so let me just give you some more of what this little excerpt was talking about. So it says gold revaluation. And so it says the Federal Reserve platform provides various series related to gold, including price reserves and non-seasonally adjusted data through the most recent updates to tags of 2020. Okay, so it says this is a summary of that page I just showed you. It says the note highlights that the United States holds the world's largest gold reserves. Once again, that's if you believe that. If you're willing to believe that, then you can take all this gold revaluation. It's going to benefit us at face value because we have the world's largest gold reserves. But if you don't believe it, keep paying attention. It says amounting to 261.5 million troy ounces, which are currently valued at a statutory price of $42.22. And then it goes on to say, per ounce. It says significantly below the current market price of approximately 3,300 per troy ounce. It says revaluing these reserves to market price could generate proceeds equivalent to about 3% of the U.S. GDP. Okay, and then it goes on to talk about how other countries have done the same thing, yada yada yada. Okay, but just this little summary mentions proceeds. Revaluing it from 42 to 33 roughly would create proceeds about 3% of GDP. Okay, so the next question is, what exactly would the government do with these proceeds? And that, my friends, is where all this is heading towards. We are not going to revalue gold and disrupt the current banker transition to the digital world because all of a sudden we have an administration that cares about rebalancing the books and trying to make things right with the American people. Primary reason why: our purchasing power gone, debt unpayable. And so once again, how can gold within a small incremental increase from 42 to 3,300, just by an example, really make a difference? And you better believe they would not truly mark to market the true ounce of gold compared to all the Federal Reserve notes, debt IOUs, digital paper, and everything else to account for one single ounce, because it will disrupt the COMEX, LBMA, all these institutions that have been positioned strategically to keep gold out of the equation. It would hurt them. It would dismantle them, and that's not going to happen. No person, in my opinion, who stands in the way of the establishment, the banking private cartel sector, whoever they are, of accomplishing everything that they set out from the beginning, will actually be able to succeed, in my opinion. And that's why I'm skeptical in this gold revaluation being something beneficial for the American people. And then let me just share with you some visual aids here that I believe prove more my point. So on the screen, let me bring this on the screen here. So on the screen here, I love to show this visual aid here of the current purchasing power of the consumer dollar. And so this, my friends, is what is really at stake here. So here we have from the creation of the Federal Reserve, every single presidential administration, Republican, Democrat, didn't matter. They all participated in the heist of our country, bit by bit, debt by debt, crises by crises. And as we can see here, the only way out of this was to continue to expand the monetary base, i.e. diluting the purchasing power of the current dollars we have in position now. And so you mean to tell me this current administration all of a sudden is just so gun-ho on making things right that he's going to disrupt every single thing that's been working successfully for the private banking cartel individuals for the last 100 plus years, to the point where he's now talking about trying to rebalance the books and add more value and take those proceeds and help pay down this and that? Come on now. Every single president played their part in this, and they're not going to go back on that. Especially when we all know things have to go digital. And so this is just more the reason why no president has ever stood in the way of the banking cartel from accomplishing what they want to accomplish. And it started well before here. What do I mean by that? If you just look at this graph here, this is another little visual way that I love to show how basically the American money supply has been so slowly evolving to go digital for decades now. And you mean to tell me they're going to go backwards? And when I mean go backwards, you got to go back and try to even use the words gold in the monetary system intentionally to try to reestablish confidence in our currency or in our monetary practices, so that the world believes that we've just had a sudden awakening and want to turn the corner and go back to what worked forever in reference to checks and balances between central banks and governments. Come on now. So as you can see on the screen here, they're not going back. Everything was designed to go slow solely to the blue, where you can see right now the blue happens to be electronic currency. And so now you have the stable coin narrative, which is the pathway to a CBDC. And you all of a sudden think that they're going to try to tokenize gold to make gold of something valuable to reinstate trust between our trading partners and things like that. Come on now. So just this alone, this graph here shows you the objective of the private banking individuals since day one. And it doesn't just stop here. For anybody who realizes and understands monetary history, especially around the United States dollar and where our country's gone or come from at this current moment, you got to understand that this stuff is just not coincidental. It's all intentional in trying to control narratives. The idea of the Federal Reserve putting handcuffs on themselves by even referencing or talking about or even literally trying to accomplish a revaluation of gold when we have no true way of understanding what a price, what an ounce is worth in a world of unlimited fiat is just ludicrous, in my opinion. And then last, I'll share this visual aid with you here, because I think this is just something that I put together as like a somewhat of a educational piece that gives a good sense of what I consider to be monetary literacy. And so literally this graph here is called the Dollaration, a monetary cheat sheet for the people. And on this here, I list every single major action taken by our government that has got us to this point where digital transitions into stable coins, eventually to a CBDC at some point in the future, was inevitable, because it all happened to surround a crisis first, some type of government intervention, which would then gave the central banks the authority to basically rewrite the rules of their mere existence. Because initially the Federal Reserve had no mandates. It was just the elasticity of currency and to prevent banking panics. But here we are now. They have spurred, for the most part, every single banking crisis. And then the result was the government steps in, borrow, the Federal Reserve monetizes, and here we are now. No linkage to gold. Once that was removed, they were in control of the whole time. Anyway, so as you can see here on this visual right here, I talk about what I consider to be the four sources in a dead center here. You got coinage, then you have the coinage and the redeemable notes phase. Then you have right here, the bottom one, it says fiat currency and digital ledgers was brought into the equation. And then on the far side there, you have fiat currency, digital currency, and then blockchain. That was the plan all along. And then just to update it some, I decided to go in and add a couple things. And as you can see over here, you have the Genius Act. How genius it is that they're rebranding our current financial structure with more digital control, i.e. centralized stablecoin issuance. And so at the end of the day, as I put down at the very bottom, all dollars are not created equal. You had the sound dollars, you got the paper dollars, now you got the digital dollars. And no way, form or fashion, will the Federal Reserve go back and put restrictions on themselves by even considering associating, pegging, or even trying to solve the problem that they created by giving gold importance in its monetary system. So it's either to do two things: disrupt the advancements of gold in the monetary system from the Eastern Hemisphere with the BRICS and China and everything else, or two, as my last point here, is to revalue the gold for the sake of taking those proceeds that was referenced and using those proceeds as a way to buy Bitcoin and use Bitcoin as the world's to capture the world's attention, because everybody is so excited about Bitcoin and putting Bitcoin in their balance sheets and all those other things. So where the goal is to dismiss gold, to make Bitcoin of such value that the rest of the world is forced to get on, because the U.S., of course, if once and when they buy Bitcoin outright, that becomes a new standard that the Western Hemisphere will try to focus on, build around, and try to make sure every other nation jumps on board that narrative, because Bitcoin, despite what we've been told, I believe is all a part of the equation that get us here to this reset that appears to be under complete uh, full functional flow right now because it's all digital in nature. And the fact that the concept of, it just mere computer code being the focus point where people trust the code, especially when you didn't write it or you can't control it. And it just plays into the favor of those that are trying to manipulate the system to the T, to where it's just, to me, nothing surprises me. But this whole gold revaluation narrative, come on now, people. I know, you want to have hope, you want to believe, but then again, come on now, come on now. We're not going backwards. We're going forward. Whether you like it or not doesn't matter. Whether you participate or not doesn't matter. We're going forward with or without you. The system will go forward because it's not about the current viewers of this channel, the Gen Z, the millennials, the baby boomers. This is about the younger crowd, the babies, those that only know digits, only know tap and pay, only know, the digital world. That generation will be the ones that will more than likely be willing, easily, overwhelmingly, and excited when the convenience of being able to interact with just your mere palm or your eye, or just tap your finger and be able to pay. That's the generation this is being built for. So just share my 2 cents on this. Curious to see what you guys think. I could be 100% wrong, but then again, based upon my narration of this reset for quite some time now, everything appears to be right on track. But if you found value, hit that thumbs up, drop a comment. If you're new, subscribe, take this, share. And of course, feel free to share with your other commentators out there that have them prove me wrong, perhaps. I'm always down to learn something. Enjoy your day. Peace.